After the Timeout podcast, hosted by Todd Zazadil and John Palicki, two high school head coaches talking basketball on the court, off the court, and anything in between.
On today's episode of the After the Timeout podcast, we sit down with Coach Jason Tucker, head boys basketball coach at Taft High School in Chicago. Coach Tucker has also been the head coach at Luther North College Prep and Sullivan High School. We talked to Coach Tucker about running a high school program during COVID, what it's like to coach a larger public school team versus a smaller private school team, and how to schedule, scout, and prepare a successful high school program. Enjoy the show.
So obviously the biggest question right now, we're all in a pandemic. We're not playing, at least in Illinois here. And we've kind of asked every coach this in a different version that we talked to. What for high school kids, what do you feel the layoff, what's the effect of the layoff for kids right now?
See, like when you talk about that, one thing that really comes to mind is the situation that I think some of these kids are in. I know a lot of kids, and I'm not speaking for every kid because I don't know every kid, but I know like the kids that are, outside of Chicago in the suburbs who maybe have a little bit more, means to be able to get into a gym, or they have a great court around their area that they're allowed to still get into. I think that they obviously are going to struggle from that no matter what. It's not the same thing, but I worry more so about our kids in Chicago and more so from our kids in the really rough parts of Chicago. This layoff, we talk a lot about the mental aspect of this all. I know as a coach, I've struggled countless times in the last 9 months. And, I think everybody here, has at some point, in their life, and mental illness is a real thing, and I take it very serious. And I've talked to my boys, countless times. I try to FaceTime them individually about once every 2 weeks just to check in on them and make sure that they're good mentally. And, to be honest, a lot of our seniors were the ones I was worried about the most. The younger guys, they, especially a couple of the freshmen, the sophomore, they know they're going to play again,
Yep.
And my thing is, my seniors are great kids. I don't know if we have many that are going to play at the next level. We might have one. So he kind of knows, like, hey, this might not be the light at the end of the tunnel for us, or for myself. But the rest are really struggling. The guys that were not playing much last year because we were very senior led last year. Those guys are really struggling because they didn't play much as juniors. And they're like, hey, now this is our opportunity, and they're struggling. I mean, I've had flat out had kids tell me that, coach, like, not anything really serious, but like, they're breaking down, they're crying, it's tough. And,
Yep.
the kids are smart enough too to understand that this is a real situation, right? Like, people are dying every day. I personally, our mailman passed away from it. He was 2 weeks ago, he was here. 2 weeks later, he was gone. And it was the craziest thing. And one of my close friends, her father's in the hospital on a ventilator right now. So like, they know the severity of what's going on. I know they want to play. I think a lot of us as coaches want to play. But I think that the biggest thing is what we always preach to our kids, even before this pandemic every year, is be a part of something bigger, be a part of something that's bigger than yourself. And I think that we've preached that more now than we've had ever, because at the end of the day, like, basketball is nothing when it comes to what's going on in our world right now. And like, not only are we dealing with the pandemic, right? Like the social part of social justice part of everything is even 20 times harder, especially for our kids in the city of Chicago, where, our population, we have a lot of African-American kids, and, they're struggling with that part too. So, it's a tough time for kids. It's a tough time for everybody. And, the only thing that we can do as coaches is continue to be positive and prepare them for hopefully what, the worst, and hope the best. And I think we're all hopefully going to see a light at the end of the tunnel here soon, I hope.
So you kind of touched on it as well. I think this is important. And this is something we've been asking every coach just because it's the time we're in, right? We're all trying to figure it out together. Nobody's ever done this. Like basketball coaches, we know how to coach, right? Like we're doing this in the fall, we're doing this in the winter. And then you have a pandemic and you're like, oh, well, we have to do all this. So what are some of the ideas and things you've been doing to support your kids' mental health? Now you touched on a few of them, but I think it's important because everybody's looking for ideas, and maybe something that you say can spark an idea that somebody can take and make their own to help their kids.
Absolutely. So, for us, like we do Zoom workouts, a couple days out of the week. We do ball handling, we do some upper body or lower body strengthening stuff with my assistant coaches. Every Sunday we meet and we either talk about something that's going on in the world, not even basketball related. We talk about what's going on academically with all of them individually. And then what I love to do is I love to get guests on with them. I've been very fortunate the last few weeks. I've had Kiefer Sykes come on and talk to our kids. Alfonso McKinney took the time out of his day from the Los Angeles Lakers and spent an hour with my guys. We've had, a couple college coaches, my old college coach, come on and talk to them. And just to kind of give them like, a little bit of hope and understand like how real the situation is and how hard it is to get to a level like a guy like Alfonso or Kiefer, and, just to kind of pique their interest too. And, we also had some other things go on. Like we did some raffling type things where, when they did the, what was it? The NBA draft, I sent out a link to our group page. I said, hey, let's do a mock draft tonight. Everybody send me a mock draft right now. Whoever gets the most right on this mock draft, I'm dropping off a Taft t-shirt at your house this week. So, they ate that up, so it got them excited. And, we did stuff like that. I gave out stuff for participation during the summer when we did more workouts, through Zoom, because we were never allowed in the CPS to see kids ever. So, I would drop off stuff to them like we would if we had regular camp. We give out a couple basketballs, things like that. I tried to keep everything as close as possible to real as we could, which we know is not a realistic thing, but I just try to keep it as positive as I can.
Okay, so let me flip it to the basketball side, I guess. I've been thinking like, it's kind of a two-part question. What is the trickle-down effect for summer and next year of all this, right? Because the summer schedule might get affected as well. We don't know, especially in Illinois. And then talk a little bit about transfers out of CPS, especially some of those high-level players and kind of the effect on that.
Well, I know what he wants out of summer, so I know part of this answer.
Yeah, so I've been one thing I do is I do use my social media a lot. Some people may not like it. Some people do. I'm not negative by any stretch of the means, but ever since this went down, I've been a realist about it. I didn't think we were going to play in November. I never thought that. Now I kept my boys positive. I said, guys, there's a chance, right? But, we got to be realistic too and understand what's going on. But, for me, I have always thought the best plan for us right now was to have a summer season. And if that was a 6-week season where for us, for example, as much as I don't like it, if we played just a CPS conference schedule, I would be happy with that. I'd be extremely happy with that. I think if every team played a conference schedule, then maybe a couple non-conference games, maybe you end up playing 10 to 12 games. I think that's a blessing. I really do. I personally do. And I know we have a lot of people who are upset that Indiana, Iowa, Wisconsin are playing, and they have every right. I mean, to each their own. I'm never going to bash anybody for their beliefs. But I think that, to play on the side of caution, this is what we're doing right now. And that's just the problem with that. And then with the transfers, kids transfer all the time, especially in the city. It happens every year. Obviously they're not normally transferring much out of the state, but in the recent years, there have been more kids, especially more high profile kids leaving. If you think of Khalil Whitney was here in Chicago and then he went off to New York, and I think it was Namari Burnett moved out to California, I think. So we have, some of the greatest talent, I think, in the United States. And, but I think that the pandemic obviously pushed a lot of kids. And I think that the thing is too, is I think there's been a lot of kids who are lowerclassmen who left that I think will be back as soon as this is over too. And I think that's a reality. I think a lot of these kids are going to come back because they know, I mean, Indiana basketball is not Chicago basketball. I hate to say that. There's going to probably be some people mad at me. It's great basketball by any stretch of the means. It's great basketball, but I don't think anything's better than the city of Chicago or in the state of Illinois. I don't. So,
Well, we're all a little biased.
a little bit. I'm definitely
So,
a bit.
We talked a lot about, in Todd's questions, a lot about the players. So I kind of want to flip it to, you as a coach in this time, how are you improving personally as a coach during this layoff? And, second kind of part of that is there something you picked up that surprised you that you never thought about before just in watching basketball?
Well, yeah, so for me, what was a struggle to begin with is I had a couple of like two sophomore coaches and a lower level, a freshman coach that stepped down. So during that time, and that was just because one was having a child, the other one was starting his master's degree. So I was put in a situation to hire new coaches during a pandemic. So, and I'm a very big, and you guys know, I mean, Coach, you know this about me, is I'm a very big people person. I love to talk and I love to meet people in person and talk to them. And, this whole Zoom interview thing was a really, tough thing to start doing. So I had to hire 3 new coaches and all through Zoom. So that was definitely different and challenging. One thing I thought that I really appreciated as a coach was just getting to expand my horizons with a lot more people that I never did before. I'd see on Twitter, hey, we have this Zoom session going on, and it was like a random Twitter thing, sign up for free. And I'm like, dude, I'm sitting here in my basement right now watching nothing because there was nothing on. I'm like, I'm in. Yep. So I would just click in and, try to absorb as much as I possibly could. And a lot of things that I took away this summer were, as crazy as it sounds, a lot of cliche things that I'm just going to like breed into my program. One thing I really loved is someone mentioned, I can't remember the coach's name off the top of my head. He goes, we don't plan for 4 quarters. We play for 5 quarters. And when I heard that, it blew my mind. What does he mean? We're ready for 5 quarters. He wants his team conditioned and ready to play 5 quarters every single game. So 4 quarters seems easy. And he always says to his kids, 2 minutes left in the game, guys, we're good. Like we got 1 more quarter to go, boys. So I've been throwing that kind of in my kids' minds this year that, hey, we're not going to be a 4-quarter team. We're going to be a 5th quarter team, because if that chance we go to overtime, we're ready to go. We're going to be mentally, we're already thinking in our head about, we got this, man. We're in the 5th quarter right now. We're good. So I love that. That was one of the biggest things. And, just the individual development stuff. I looked up a lot more things like that. And, to me, the biggest thing was just making more connections with people, because at the end of the day, we all know that goes beyond, we love competing against each other. We might hate each other for that 32 minutes that we're playing against each other, right? But, at the end of the night, we're buddies. I think of an instance for like our rival Lane Tech, Nick Lagalbo, who's one of my really good close coaching friends. We had a battle this year, and at the end of the day, we love each other. That guy got me into USA basketball and things like that. I mean, the guy's a great guy, but for 32 minutes, I didn't even want to look at him. So we all know that it's all about connection. So I hope that answers the question, guys.
Yeah, Todd and I run a podcast together, and for 4 years we coached against each other. So
I didn't know that. That's funny.
Yeah. So
That's awesome.
So just now, with basketball kind of back on, who are some of the teams that you're watching, college, pro, whoever? I really have loved watching Rutgers play this year. Yes.
So they've been a blast. U of I has been great. Michigan is unbelievable. It's been tough not watching a little bit of Duke. I know that they just had their first game back the other night with Shire coaching, so that was cool to see. NBA-wise, obviously, you guys all see it behind me. I'm a diehard Bulls fan. It's been kind of nice to see the growth that they've made in the past 9 games under Billy Donovan. And I'm just a basketball junkie, so whatever's on, I'll watch and, just look at clips and stuff on YouTube or whatever. But, yeah, I really, really have enjoyed watching Rutgers play. My assistant coach is a diehard Northwestern guy, so I've watched the Northwestern stuff just to kind of, jab back and forth with him a little bit. But yeah, and one of my other assistant coaches, his buddy was the coach at University of Indianapolis, but I forgot where they're at now. But I've watched a few of their games, and they were good. And I've also, watched up a couple of my kids are actually playing still right now. One of my boys is at Judson University, and he's been playing a lot as a freshman. Yep. So some of the teams are playing, some of these smaller schools, and a lot of these D3 are going to be playing here in the next few weeks too. So I'm excited to watch some of those games.
So, obviously, Coach, you and I coach, I would say maybe 3 miles from each other, but a world of different style of school. So kind of let's talk about the struggles of coaching in a large public school, that you're not getting the same type of contact that those other suburban and private schools have had. What is the difference in the large city school compared to, you, and get into you in a different question down the line, but what is the difference in those large city schools compared to those smaller suburban coaches?
And you're talking more so like as of what the current situation is now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, well, obviously, CPS shut down everything for us. The only time I have actually physically seen my kids, I drove by a park, they all got together and played. I waved out my car, said hi, and that was really much the end of it, because I'm a very big stickler of doing things the right way. And, I didn't know what's legal or not legal at this time to go see a kids playing at a park. But, for us, we've had nothing. I have not ran a drill with any of my kids since we lost to Schaumburg in the regional semifinal game. So for me, that was the toughest thing. And, I also had 2 freshmen that I was very high on that were going to be brought up to the varsity level this year, that now didn't get any development from me from June on. Okay. So essentially those boys next year are going to be sophomores if we don't play, right? If we don't play, they're going to be sophomores, and they're freshmen. That's what they are then. So that kills a year of their development. It kills a year of the sophomores, the juniors. And then, we already talked about the seniors part of it all, but so that's been very tough just because, for instance, we're Taft High School, we're looking in Chicago, and then we have Ridgewood High School, who's 2 miles away from me, who's having practice because they're allowed to. They're having individual workouts because they're allowed to. And my kids are upset, right? Coach, it's not fair. It's not fair. Fellas, like, there's nothing we can do. And the biggest thing that I feared was we were going to have kids transfer. That's honestly what I thought. I thought for a while that the city wouldn't play and the suburbs would. And that's when I thought it would get really crazy. But thank goodness we have not been put in that situation at all yet. But so that was the toughest part with this pandemic, is not being able to do anything with them. I know you guys are having workouts with masks on. I would have loved to have done that. I would have loved to have been in a gym, even if it's 4 kids, 1 hour, 4 kids come another hour. Like, I would have been all in to help these guys, but our hands are tied, and that kind of puts us in a tough situation that if we do get to play anytime soon, I think we're, 10 steps behind everybody else in a sense, right? Maybe not from 5-on-5 standpoint, but maybe from an individual skill standpoint. And I hope they're working on their own, but I also want them to be safe. That's the first thing for me.
All right. So you just talked about it a little bit. My situation, right? I'm a first-year head coach, Peatone, Illinois. I have 2 seniors graduating. I'm having 10 juniors come back. I got 12 guys coming from the sophomore level. I don't know what your roster situation is, but I wanted to talk about, like, you obviously said we missed out on all this time. They're not playing. You're not getting to work with them. I'm not really getting to work with my guys either. A little bit here and there I've gotten. We probably got a little bit more new, but like, in terms of evaluating those guys going into next year, right? Because there's always a decision to make, right? Some guys are going to play more than others, and you got to make that decision. What are some of the things you're thinking about of evaluating throughout the off season, to kind of create your roster and put guys in roles?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question, because when I first started as a head coach back in 2010, I was the head basketball coach at Luther North College Prep. We had 162 kids in our whole school. So it was really easy to come up with 15 guys to play basketball, right? And then I moved over, we closed down in 2017. I went to Sullivan, and I think they had about 800 kids. So it wasn't that much of a difference, right? Then I get the head coaching job at Taft, and there's 4,000 kids in the whole school. So you're talking about a major difference. And, some guys will get 25 guys that want to come out for a team. I swear to you guys, I've had 100 kids come to a tryout, 100 kids. And, a good amount of the kids because there's open gyms and things like that. But Sometimes you get surprised, but I also there's a lot of things that I, as a coach, look at beforehand. And that's number one, their commitment with the summer. We always say, and I'm sure you guys are always this, every coach is the same way. Yeah, summer's not mandatory, but neither is your playing time during the year. We've all said that, right? I look for leaders, absolutely. I need leaders on the team. Academics, number three, we're always checking up on academics. So if we have kids that try out, the kid looks unbelievable, first thing I'm going to say is, hey, is this kid eligible? And that's the first thing we want to know right away. If we're going to have to deal with a kid that academically he's not going to be able to step on the floor. The quality of the kid. All right. We don't want any bad seeds around us. And that's a tough part. And then also I've been in situations where I think that a kid needs it. And I know that sounds a little crazy. I've kept 17 or 18 on a roster before because there's 2 or 3 kids. Sometimes I feel like, listen, if this kid doesn't come in this gym from August till March, this kid's going to be doing something on the streets that's not going to be good for him or his family. So I would make that choice. And sometimes it's backfired on me. I'm not going to lie to you, but I always want to help out kids. That's always been my number one thing is I had some really good people who influenced me as a kid. I could have went the other way. And there was always somebody there to push me, to the right way. And I always wanted to be that guy and give somebody a chance. Now, that doesn't mean, playing time's not guaranteed, but like I said in the beginning of this podcast, do you want to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? And that was a big reason why I said to myself, I want to keep some of these kids because they need it. They really do. So hope that's a good answer, fellas.
That's a great answer. All right. So let's talk about schedule. I'm a play anybody anywhere guy. Like if you got an opening this year, I'll come play you. I don't care. We're a small little school, but I really will. We'll come play. But you obviously have different factors, right? You got some teams you play. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So when you look at scheduling, right? Are you scheduling your talent? And maybe if you got a really good team this year, you're adding some extra games, or you're kind of molding it to your system. How are you looking at scheduling in a high school season?
Can I talk about 10 years ago how I felt with it and how I do now?
Yeah.
And honestly, God, it's the same. I feel the same way. So when I was coaching at Luther North and I was a 1A basketball coach, I wanted to play a bunch of 3 and 4A teams. The issue was the 3 and 4A teams didn't want to play the 1A team because they have everything to lose and we have everything to gain.
Right.
So I would always be like, hey, put them on the schedule. Let's get them. Coach, would you want to play? Oh, we're tight. Then 2 weeks later, there might be, hey, I got 2 openings. What? Come on, man.
Yeah.
No, but for an example, when I was at Luther North in 2015, we were a great team. We were 24-6 and made it to the Sweet 16. And there was a team at Ackwen Catholic, and this was all the way out. Yeah, Freeport.
Yeah.
We drove all the way out there because they were the number 2 ranked team in Class 1A. And it was like during a snowstorm. It took us 3.5 hours to get there. And everyone's like, oh, Ackwen's the best. Ackwen's great. And that's all I kept feeding my boys all that 2 weeks preparing for them. They had a great team, but man, we went up there and we took care of business up there that day. So for me, I've always have been, that's the best right there. Let's go. Just like your mindset is. That's the best. Let's go. And that was a struggle because the coaches before me at Taft did a great job of scheduling tough teams. I love that. But the team that I inherited was not ready to play those teams my first year. I mean, we took our lickings my first year at Taft, and that was tough. But we kept those teams. We wanted to keep playing the best of the best. I know we weren't running from anybody, and that's something I sell my kids. Like, listen, guys, we're not going to go play 1A, 2A teams right now. You need to be competing with these teams that are the top 25 right now in the Chicago Sun-Times that Michael O'Brien is saying is the best. Let's do it. We may not be as talented, but we're going to be tough as nails and go after everybody. That's how it has to be. We had a lot of really close games last year against some really good teams. And sometimes, the teams would pull away the last few minutes. Like, when we played Niles North, we ran a junk defense. We were up 4 points in the third quarter and we just ran out of gas. And we played Whitney Young. We were down 2 at halftime of those guys. And, that talent was just unbelievable. But we weren't afraid. I would call a timeout. I'm taking away from your timeout thing, guys. But I'd call a timeout and we're up 10 to 3, 10 to 4, just to use a timeout to say, look, they're human. They're 17 years old, just like you. Look at that. And it'd be a waste of a timeout. But sometimes that hey, that got them even more wild to go out there and play. So to answer your question, we want to play the best of the best. We're class 4A. We have 4,000 kids. I can't say I can go play 1 and 2A, 3A schools or really, not very good 4A schools and go to a regional meeting, even though it's all online, and say, hey, Evanston, hey, Loyola, here's who we played. They know, no, we can't hide. So if I'm showing up and I'm almost beating Fenwick and playing teams tough, I think that shows something. We had a really good seed for what Taft basketball has been for a while, and I think it's going to get better. So we're not running, man. We're going for everybody.
So with that schedule, then I want to talk about your scouting process, because I'm a big scouting guy. I love it, right? I think that makes a huge difference. And when I was at Vider on the girls' side, I think that's what differentiated us to win the regionals we won and go as far as we did. What is your scouting process like? Obviously, you have teams in your conference. You're probably hopefully they're pretty consistent with coaches, so you kind of know what they're running. But talk us through your scouting process. How that goes throughout the year, maybe off season, what you do there.
You talk about more so with the teams that we're playing against?
Yeah, the teams that you're playing against in your league, and then okay, you get a team, you put them on your schedule. How are you getting ready for them?
Man, so I'm crazy. So if I know that we're scheduling a team, for the next following season, I'm going to go probably look at some of those teams in the summer leagues that they're in, as crazy as that sounds. I kind of want to get an early idea right away of what we're going to play. Now, in summer, you're not going to get everything, but just to kind of already get an idea of what they do defensively and things like that. I'm already the wheels are already turning. I'm a kind of guy that wants to see a team at least 3 to 5 times. And I'm not a guy that likes to get film. I do love film. Don't get me wrong. I need to see a team in person. And I think that that's something that's missing big time with younger coaches nowadays. And I'm only 36, but they don't know what it means to go out and grind at, after a 3:30 to 5:30 practice, to go drive all the way up to Rockford to go to watch a 7:30 game. Like I had to in my Luther North days in that crazy conference we were in, driving up to go see Mooseheart and Aurora, from Chicago.
Right.
I want to go see what they look like in person, because on film, you get break down plays, things like that, but you really get to see the speed and athleticism of a kid, of a team, better that way. So we'll go anywhere between 3 to 5 times to see people. Now that, what happens sometimes is I over evaluate, and that becomes a problem. Or there might be a time where we only see somebody once or twice because scheduling wise, it's just not as easy as it is. And a kid doesn't do anything. And then he goes off against us, for example, the film I sent you guys against Fenwick, a kid hit 7 threes against us.
Yeah.
We try to do whatever we could to stop the 2 Division I monsters they have, but we got a kid, even though it's on the scouting report, corner shooter, kid buried us 7 threes, I think, in that game. So, sometimes you overthink, and then sometimes you think you have all the answers, and then someone surprises you every single time. So, but we're very detail oriented. We try to pride ourselves to do everything at a college level as much as we could. I think the kids kind of get sick sometimes of seeing the board before the game and how I have 16 paragraphs up about everything. So I'm very particular. My assistant coaches are some of the best. I love them, man. But, I always want to see everything too. I'll send them out to do film for me, but I always hey, can you send me that film? Because I want to see it too, because I'm at practice. I still got to see what they're doing. I take their word, but I still got to see it.
You could rename this podcast the Scouting Nerds Podcast, and Todd and I would fit right in with that answer, Coach. So we both agree.
Yeah.
So, I really want to focus on, you've kind of coached the gamut as far as, like you said, different size schools. So, take this out of COVID now, you've coached at a Catholic school, Lutheran school, a mid-size, as you said, public school, now a very large public school. Kind of take through for, other coaches that are at a variety of different size schools. Like Todd said, he coaches in Peatone, Illinois. Like myself, I coach at an all-girls high school. So throughout your career, what have you noticed are the benefits and challenges of each kind of size school?
Well, the first thing I want to say is every single class has great basketball. And I think that's one thing that I value very much as my experiences. There was some 1A schools, man, that would beat the lights out of some of these 4A schools up here. That Mooseheart team that won the state championship back in 1A, that was, you got 6'7", 7'2", and 6'10" on your front line. You're going to beat a lot of good teams, right? And then, being at Sullivan, the 2A level, there's some very good teams all over the place. And then obviously in the 4A level, that's the best of the best, right? But there's obviously so many differences. For me, when I was at Luther North, everything's been like a family-like situation everywhere I've been. I can honestly say that. But when you have 160 kids in the whole school, you kind of get to know every single kid in the whole school. Because what are they doing on Friday night? All 160 of those kids are probably coming to the basketball game. And, we did a great job of creating an environment and turning a program around there where, basketball was like, we were really making some strides there before we closed down. But, the toughest thing I think at times was, obviously keeping the doors open. I knew when I took over that job in 2010 that they signed a 5-year lease, or I'm sorry, I think it was an 8-year lease to stay open with the church that took over the building in the first place. But we, so every year we really, really needed to get butts and seats. It was extremely important. And the tough thing was, we're competing with St. Pat's down the street. We're competing with Notre Dame. There's a lot of really good private schools in that area that had more prestige. And I'm just going to be honest with you, as a school. And that really took away from us. The biggest thing was it was a Lutheran school and there was no other Lutheran schools in the Chicagoland area. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't going to be able to stay alive anymore. So that was a tough situation. Then going over to Sullivan, I think that was probably my most rewarding job I've ever had. And it was probably one of my most fun years of coaching. Those kids, man, I'll tell you, to this day, I love all my kids, but those kids were special. Not saying that they were the most talented kids ever, but they really bought in that 1 year that I was there. And, family circumstances were one of the main reasons why I left. I'm sure, I think Coach knows, my mother went partially paralyzed about 3 years ago. And we live in Elmhurst, Illinois, and Rogers Park is an hour from Elmhurst in traffic. So I was driving from Schiller Park, where I work, all the way up to Rogers Park, and then driving back home to Elmhurst. And my wife was taking care of my mother because we weren't going to let my mom, be anywhere else except at home. And it just became a tough situation. And then Taft was just a dream job. Taft was a dream job of mine. I've always told myself, hey, it's been great to win at 1A. And, we won a conference championship at Sullivan. But I'm like, if I'm going to be judged by the end of the time I'm doing this, 4A is the way for me to go. I really want to play with some of these big name coaches and these big name programs. And I want to build Taft to be one of the best programs at the Northwest side of Chicago. And I think with a lot of effort and time and commitment and bringing in the right type of kids and, to the program, I think we can do that there. And I think we've already taken a couple steps going that way. But the toughest part with a 4A school, especially with the size of ours, is I don't know every kid, and I'm never going to know every kid there. The cool thing is our gym has never been not packed. It's one of the coolest environments to be. We do kind of have a Cracker Jack box gym kind of. I wish it was bigger. But the place is rocking. You can't even really talk or yell or anything. And I'm a yeller as a coach. And you can't really get, we have to write stuff on big boards when we're calling out plays because our kids can't hear us. And that's a great thing, man. It's a great environment. And the great thing about Taft too is our admin really, really preach athletics and really, really love sports. Obviously everything's academics first. That's what we've always been. But, it's great to have leadership that really believes in athletics as well. And then, like the bigger, hardest thing with the smaller schools too was, obviously sharing athletes, but that's in every, even at Taft, I'm sharing athletes. I'm worried that if football and basketball play at the same time this year, right, yeah, I'm going to lose 2 6A kids and that's going to kill us. So the fact is, with these 1A schools, 2A schools, it's very hard to share athletes in a normal environment. With this pandemic, it's going to be impossible. Some of these schools are really, some of them aren't going to play programs. And I mean, that's just the reality. And it's sad to think that way. So I would say that was the biggest struggle at a small school. And the biggest struggle at a big school is walking around and, high school kids are 15 times the size big as me. And I'm, so I look like a kid sometimes too now. So except the gray hair, that'll get you now.
So let's get into some X's and O's a little bit. So, I'm going to focus kind of on the offensive side. Me personally, I'm a big, pace and space guy and with some dribble drive elements to it and some Villanova men's and women's elements, some 5 out, some, we like to score fast, at res with 7 seconds or less. So kind of take me through your guys' offense at Taft and just kind of to quote Coach Z, take away the fluff. What are the key elements to your guys' offense?
Well, it's crazy. You said a lot of stuff that came out of your mouth is kind of what we believe in too. We want constant space. We had last year, we had great guards that could really penetrate and hit it, hit shooters. And I've always been a big dribble drive guy, big dribble drive guy. I've, from, Coach Gamp, from Coach Calipari, from, there's a coach up in Wisconsin, a high school coach who runs it great too. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I would just dig in about that dribble drive. And we ran that all the time at Luther North and, we ran a lot of it at Taft, and we still run a lot of those things. We're kind of the same way with the pace. We want to get out and go. We didn't get out as fast as I wanted to last year. It just didn't work out well in our favor. I really focused more so on breaking stuff down in a half court and just kind of using and utilizing our best players as much as we can. And honestly, decoying a lot with our best players. And that helps a lot too, especially in the Chicago Public League. We see a ton of zone in the public league. That's neither here or there. There's some reasons why, and there's some reasons why not, I guess, but we see a lot of zone. So for me, I absolutely love when a team goes zone because I have so many quick hitters against zones. I'd love to show you guys a ton of my stuff. That will get us layups after layups or wide open threes or whatever. And, but yeah, we really love to get out and go. We really love to, pace and space. And, everything's going to change every other year or every year. It depends on what we have. I've always been, especially in the past 3 or 4 years, if we don't have kids that can play dribble drive, I'm not going to play dribble drive. If I have a bunch of slow kids, I'm going to walk the ball up the floor. We're going to run our stuff. We're going to try to execute it and do what we can. But every year it's going to change for us, to be honest with you, Coach. This year, with having 2, 6, 7, 2, 6, 8 kids, I'd have to utilize some more stuff. We were, probably going to do a heck of a lot of horn stuff, a lot of stuff to keep them involved, and just a whole lot of different things to get us going this year. But man, we're all going to be very behind, very, very, very behind.
All right, so I'll flip it to the defensive side. And I saw you guys kind of mix it up at times, right? That's probably scout. That's probably necessity, right? I mean, there's all kinds of different things. I didn't see, I saw those 2 games, but there's lots of things that go into it. But I'm always interested in what's the flip? Okay, you're playing man and you flip to zone, or what kind of triggers that for you? Is a lot of times is it feel? Is it specific things you're looking to try to force the team to do?
Honestly, it's purely going back to scouting for the most part. So what's funny is one of the games I sent you guys was against our rival Lane Tech. Okay. That game was originally started in our gym. Okay. I don't know if you guys, I don't know if Coach, I don't know if you know this story, but we started that game. We had a freshman game, a freshman B game, a sophomore game at our place. Mm-hmm. The place was packed to the wall. We had to let 600 kids leave out the door. They couldn't get in.
I believe it.
Wasn't it you couldn't play on the court, right? Because it was.
So the court was slick. The first 3 minutes of the game, our kids are falling. So, Nick and I, the coach at Lane, came together and said, hey, we got to stop this game. That's it. So we had to reschedule that game. So we started that game in man-to-man. Okay. They were up, I think it was 12 to 4 or something to start that game. So when we had to restart the game, that was the score of the game, right? Thankfully, I went to go out and scout them one more time. I went and saw them play a team, and that team just went strictly zone against them. And they did specific things in that zone that really gave them fits. So I'm like, hey, I got 3 days right now. We're going to throw in this zone. We're going to make some kind of changes to our normal zone defense, and we're going to run it against them. And it worked really well for us that night. I think we went on a big run to beat them. And That was one of the first times we beat Lane in a while, so it was very nice for our program. But, specifically, I'm a big man guy. I always have been. But, I love junk defenses. And, when we played a few teams this year, I've done some triangle and two. I've done a few box and ones, just specific rules out of those two. We'll mix it up with anything. To me, it depends on who we're playing and what their strengths are and what we can do to try to disrupt what they do the best. So, but I do love man. I love picking up. I'm a big zone 2-1-2 guy from full court trapping. Excuse me. That's been my bread and butter for years. So I love getting turnovers in that. But we love to guard man to man, but we were not very good at it the last 2 years, to be honest with you. So
that has a lot to do with it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's flip it to the timeouts, right? We're the After Timeout podcast. And I think this is very overlooked as well in coaching. So over the years, first question, how have you developed your timeouts, right? What it goes into them? Is it different for full 30s and things like that?
Well, I think the first thing I want to make sure that I say, and I'm sure like every coach knows this, but we have one of our assistant coaches specifically keeps track of our timeouts the whole game. And he always tells me no matter what, at certain points of the game, how many timeouts we have. And that's a blessing, right? And my Coach Hoy is his name, and that guy is on it all the time. Coach Hoy is one of my best friends, man. And Dan, I never met a guy that knows the little details so much than Coach Hoy. Is phenomenal with this. That's just that little bit of stuff. But you got to have a guy like that on your staff. Number two, I've always wanted to try to keep 3 timeouts going into the fourth quarter. And I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know why, but I've always have had in my head, man, if we're in a tight game, like I really got to have these in my back pocket. Now that's not to say that if teams are going on huge runs on us, I'm going to say, oh no, I got to keep these 3. No, like we're going to call our timeouts if we need it. We try to do timeouts too. If we make a big run, I think it might've been in that Taft game. If we make a big run and we know that they like to get it out fast and we take a 4-point lead, I'm going to call a timeout real quick before they try to throw it in to kind of get our defense set up in a situation in the middle of the fourth quarter. So in my head, I know I'm taking that quick timeout real quick. We might have just got up by 4. They're getting it out as fast as they can. I want to make sure our guys aren't prancing up the floor slowly to get up the floor and save us a possession to guard. And I hate to say that, but that's the reality of kids. Sometimes they might get late. So, but I'm a big believer in those timeouts, having them in my back pockets. I told you earlier in the podcast that, I will call a timeout every once in a while if we're playing a big, good team, really, really good team. And if we're up early, I'm going to call it and say, hey, look at that. They're kids. They're kids just like you, just to try to motivate them. And then number 2, to calm them down. Because, they'll play at a high when they play those guys, and then they can get stumped down real quick. So it kind of calms them down too, and kind of sets them in the reality like, hey, we're here, guys. Like, we're good, And then obviously you're going to call some timeouts when things aren't going your way. Call some timeouts when, somebody's doing something that they shouldn't be doing and you're not very happy, and you let them know you're not very happy. But yeah, that's kind of my beliefs on timeouts.
All right, so let's have some fun. We're 3 Chicago guys. We're all big Bulls fans. We're all around the same age. So let's talk about, and all 3 of us will do it. Let's talk about our 5 favorite non-quote unquote star Bulls players of all time. So as I kind of said to you, when I sent you the questions, so no Jordan, no Pippen, no Rodman, no Rose, etc. So let's each give our 5. Go ahead, Coach Tucker.
We're going to go 5 straight, or we're going one at a time here? 5 straight. I'll go 5 straight. I'm going to go 5 straight.
All right. Yeah. Go 5 straight.
I'll tell you my 5. And I told you guys one's not a player.
Okay.
So I'm cheating. Number 1 for me is Joakim Noah by far. He's probably I want to say even my favorite Bull of all time. I mean, obviously Jordan and Pippen, Rodman, but like how that guy just buried his body for the city of Chicago. I mean, it basically ruined his career, to be honest with you, after all those injuries he got in Chicago. Just the heart and soul, did everything he could to be a top 4 MVP candidate at one point. And for a guy that didn't average more than, I think, 12 points a game that season, he just impacted winning so much. So him. Luol Deng was another one of those guys I thought was just a guy that was always overlooked, was a glue guy. Someone that's not talked about a lot who probably should have their jersey retired too is Horace Grant. Horace Grant was phenomenal for those 3 first championship runs. I have to say Steve Kerr because I just love Steve Kerr. And my biggest one is Tibbs. I mean, I never have loved watching a guy coach basketball more in my life than watching Tom Thibodeau 3 rows up and hearing the things that have come out of his mouth during coaching. And not even just that, how he got his guys to guard, especially at that level, in this current NBA. I mean, obviously this was 10 years ago, but even in that current NBA, to have a team guard the way that they did and how a team really bought into everything he did, I thought he was special. And I mean, he's got the Knicks already rolling already. So he's, I think a lot of people written him off, and he's still a great basketball coach, one of my favorites of all time. So I thought those 2010 to 2015 Bulls were some of my favorite Bulls to watch. I mean, I think with a lot of people too.
All right, Z, hit it.
All right, so I'm going with Andres Nocioni. All right. He was kind of a pest. He was like one of those guys, and I maybe been known to be a little bit of instigator as well when I played, right? So he was kind of just one of those guys who like was always kind of in somebody's hair, played his tail off. Every once in a while he'd go off, right? And the whole crowd is cheering for him.
Nocioni.
Yeah, and he just played hard. Like he just played his tail off. Luol Deng, I thought he was always sneaky, right? Like in a game, you didn't really notice him, and then you're like, he's got 10 boards, he's got 18 points, playing the best defender. I had Joakim as well. Just one simply for his energy, right, and his enthusiasm for the game. Always liked Taj Gibson because he just kind of went on so I'm like a try-hard Bulls guy, right? And then the last one, this is where you can see I got my defensive guys, but the last one was Jamal Crawford.
It's good.
Jamal Crawford just had a little bit of shake, and like, again, he's the guy, I'm just going to drop 50 tonight. And like, he's dropping 50 and making guys look just like they're, high school guys. So that was my last guy. I had some runners up, but those are my top 5.
So it was interesting listening to you guys again. The only guy that's on all of our lists is Noah. Noah was definitely on mine. I just think it, Coach Tucker said it perfectly. To kind of go along with those instigators, like Coach Z said with Nocioni, I put Charles Oakley on the list. I just thought that was, you want to talk about an instigator? You want to talk about, you want to knock Jordan down? I'm going to knock you down. I had Kirk Heinrich on my list. I just think, he for so many years, he just was like Mr. Bull. Like when I thought of the Bulls, I always thought of Kirk Heinrich. Now, I know we think about all these 90s Bulls and a Horace Grant I thought about, but my favorite Bull for a while there was B.J. Armstrong. Loved B.J. Armstrong as a point guard. And then I know, Z, you put him on your list, but, everybody always thinks about from Duke, us getting Jay Williams and a motorcycle accident and all that, but I loved Chris Duhon between the D and the key threes. And just when I think of a pure point guard, that's a guy I think of is just Duhon. So those are mine. I really liked the idea of Thibodeau, and I actually think Scott Skiles, if we want to just talk about the coach underrated, I thought Scott Skiles got a lot out of the players that he had. So, but Coach, this was so much fun. We greatly appreciate. We love having our local Chicago guys on with us. You kind of helped us kick off those local Chicago guys. So we greatly appreciate you taking the time to spend with us this evening to talk a little basketball, not only, nationwide, but local for us. So thank you for joining us.
No, thank you guys. This was honestly, like I said before we even started, this was an honor, man. So if I ever can do anything for this podcast or, you guys already know, Coach, you already know, if I ever need anything, I'm always here, man. And let's talk hoops anytime you guys want, off the air, on the air, whatever you want to do. Let's do it.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the After the Timeout podcast. For more information and upcoming episodes, follow us on Twitter at After the Timeout. You can find all of our episodes on anchor.fm Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcasts by searching After the Timeout. Thank you for listening.